Okay chaps, Finra here. Just going to talk you through starting up the P-51D Mustang in DCS World. This is version 1.5.2, currently on the ACG server, World War II. So we'll be flying the Mustang and we'll be fighting Focke-Wulf's Messerschmitts on a kind of airquake map. Going to select my Mustang. I prefer mine with a blue nose, so I'm going to pick one of the 485th Fighter Squadron aircraft. Done. Go to briefing. Okay, looks good. So there we are. We're taking off from Glenelg and flying kind of north-northeast to a centre point where hopefully we'll meet Jerry. So, fly. This sometimes takes a little while to load in. Do not be alarmed. Okay, here we go. Now, first thing I do is a quick 180 left. There we go, and right. I think this is just giving the game a chance to load in all the textures and the geometry, so that it's in the RAM, and as you can see, it's far less stuttery now. I've done it. Okay, now I've got my pilot model up. Let's get rid of that with Shift P by default. And there you go, and now we can see all of the buttons and switches. So first we've got flaps fully up, so left click hold, full up, and then carburetor ram air, full forward. So that's the last thing on that side. Now we've got to switch our electrics on. If you notice, just below the crank handle here we have our row of switches. These four that are all down need to come on. And bingo, you'll see some of the lights have come on, some of the dials have burst into life, and we're now electrified. Next we need to get fuel to the engine, so fuel shut off. We need the fuel on, and the next thing we need the fuel booster pump, which is this switch down here. These are your main engine start controls. So fuel booster is the furthest left of the silver switches. That's got to go on. Okay, so now we can start thinking about priming the engine. We want to set the engine up, so throttle closed currently in an open a fraction. My prop pitch is fully back, so that needs to be fully forward, and that's done. Now we can think about priming the engine. So this is the primer here. It's the rightmost of the engine control switches. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all you need. Okay. What I'm going to do here is, this is the starter switch. I'm going to raise that, click on it, left click, and the prop will start turning. Once it's started to catch, and it will be very obvious, then we quickly jump back here and right click once the mixture control, so it moves into the run position. If you left click, so if I do that and pull it back, if I left click, you'll see it runs straight down to the fully rich position. If you do that, you'll find that your engine starts spluttering and doing nasty things as you get to about 15,000 feet and losing power and all sorts of corruption. It's not good, so remember, right click once and into run. Okay, so we've got to first put the mags in. So these are the magnetos down here, and they're on. So now we can start the engine ignition sequence. So okay, let's look. Okay, it's overcoming the compression. She's going to go, she's going to go. Don't leave this too long. Right, no, she's not going to go, so I'm going to give her a little bit more primer. 1, 2, 3. Done. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, and there we go. She's caught, and then quickly flick it to run. Close the throttle. Now, if you want to be fastidious, you can put your parking brake on. So we do that by depressing the brake, clicking on that, unpressing the brake, and releasing. The parking brake is now. Now, if I want to release that, I press the same brake. There you go. And if you saw that rudder movement down there, I press that, and it popped back in. We're free to roll. Okay, quickly before we leave, I'm going to switch my guns to on. So I need guns, sight, and camera. So that's right click once here. If I left click, it would move down to camera and sight. So we'd have a nice reticule and all that jazz. We'd actually have no electricity going to the guns to fire them, which would be pretty useless in a dogfight. We've got no external ordnance, so we're not going to worry about that. I'm going to flick the cover down of the starter switch, And that's it, we're ready to rock and roll. So you see the Mustang taxiing out there. I know Flying this map before that he's heading towards the runway, which is just about down there, so we're going to follow him out. A quick word about taxiing in the Mustang. Right, with the stick aft of centre, you've got 6 degrees of travel on the tail wheel, and that will move with your rudder input. So if I move the rudder to the right, the tail wheel will steer us with a maximum of 6 degrees of travel to the right and vice versa to the left. If I need to get more rotation, what I do is I can move the stick forward. This unlocks the tail wheel and makes it castering, but you cannot control it with the rudder. It's just freewheeling. So the trick is to get yourself in a position where you need to do a 90-degree turn with a little bit of speed, but not too much. Put the stick into forward and then depress the rudder on the side that you wish to turn. And what this will do, you don't need full rudder, it can just be a tap, and this will start the aircraft swinging. You want to accelerate because you'll have momentum, and it will quickly get away from you if you're not careful. So what you'll have to do is correct the opposite rudder as you start coming around into the heading, and then as the tail wheel straightens up, stick back to lock it back into the 6-degree range. It takes a bit of a knack, just getting used to, but it's not beyond the bounds of man. If I can do it and I'm a complete rating idiot, then you should be able to this one. I will demonstrate that with you now. So now we've got the front a bit. So as you can see, if I do left and right, something like movement's restricted. As I come up to the taxiway, stick forward, tap of right rudder, and momentum carries it round, and I just control it, feathering the left hand brake and stick back to lock it back into 6 degrees restricted and twice. You're going to need a burst of throttle to get the aircraft moving, but once she's rolling she does tend to carry the speed quite well, so be careful not to pick up too much speed, which I'm doing a bit here now. See, this is, I've got stick still held back, so I've made that turn quite nicely with only 6 degrees of rudder, tail wheel rather, and onto the runway. Okay, let's hold her here. Okay. If you haven't got differential braking on rudder pedals, you will find this a little bit difficult, so I can recommend it. Otherwise, have a left and right brake key or HOTAS binding. Okay, so we close the throttle. There's 2 ways of doing this. You can do Control C, or mouse over the canopy crank handle, and if you have a mouse wheel, use that. Okay, so we're in. Alright, last thing to do, I'm going to quickly select fixed and gyro, because that's how I prefer my gun sight set up, but also the gyro has to be on for that to work, so there's gyro on. I'm also going to uncage my artificial horizon. Now, some people recommend 6 degrees of right rudder trim to counteract the torque. I don't like it because while it's reasonably helpful at the beginning of the takeoff run with lots of power, by the time you get airborne it's dragging you off to the right hand side, so I kind of deal without it, but your mileage may vary. Try it out, you might find a setting that you prefer. Prop pitch is fully forward. We're going to ramp it up to full throttle, which is going to be 60 inches of mercury, and we are at 3000 RPM and getting airborne. It'll take off by itself essentially, so you'll feel it getting under you, and we'll have a little bit of right stick and we'll be compensating with right rudder as required. So powering up steadily, don't slam the throttle, just give it good power on. Okay, so I'm just balancing on the rudder here, going left a little bit, on the right rudder, on the right rudder. Okay, I'm going to push the nose down to keep it on, keep it planted, make it come up when I want, and get it up and off. Okay, gear up, still holding in a little bit of right rudder, keep it centered. Okay, first I'm going to reduce the manifold pressure. I'm going to come back down to 50, and then I'm going to think about bringing down the RPM. So the 2700, that will do. You can't run full power and full RPM for very long in the Mustang. If you haven't got airspeed, you will burn out the engine and you will stop with a bang, and you will rapidly find yourself with this on the road. it's not very tolerant of abuse. So look at keeping the airspeed above 220 on the climb out. I can see contacts out there after my 2 to 3 o'clock. I want to get some height before I engage. Right, now I'm here, I'm going to switch on my tail warning radar. And say, to climb out, get a bit of height. Try and keep above 220. Just under 2,000 feet per minute on the clock. Watching the temps very carefully. Temperature coolant gauge down here is your main radiator, governed by how much throttle you're using, and then down here the large temp degree C, we can see the big needle just at 80. That is your oil temperature, which is governed by the use of your RPM. The radiators in the Mustang do take a while to catch up with what's going on. So whilst it might be in green or heading towards red as it is now, you generally find that as long as you keep your airspeed above 220, it will sort itself out. But don't peg it too hard in between large throttle movements, it doesn't like. And definitely be a little bit conservative with your RPM. Keep speed and accelerate very well at 26-2700 RPM. You shouldn't need to flog it unless you're in absolute danger. The Mustang and DCS loves height. Height gives you airspeed and gives you options. So bear that in mind before engaging. If you're entering fights at low level, you're not flying to the Mustang stream. Off to me. So we're coming up through 5,000 now. Further a little bit higher to be honest, but anyhow. Mustang. Mustang, and it looks like he's being tailed by something. It looks like a Measure Smith. Yeah, that's a Measure Smith. Close. Okay, turning in the Mustang. Rudder is your best friend. Keep your rudder and aileron inputs coordinated. What I mean by that is, if you stick left, then rudder left, generally. There is a little bit of a kind of disingenuous reverse to that, is when you're in a sustained turn, the Mustang, rather like a glider, you find that, sorry, hang on a second, I'm trying to concentrate here, you find that in order to keep the turn coordinated, you have to use quite an amount of rudder. What that also means is that means is your rudder input, because you'll have quite a bit of it in, is causing you to roll. So you might find that in a coordinated turn you end up with actually using a slightly opposite aileron input to the turn in order to keep coordinated but to stop the roll continuing. the stuttering, I think it's because I'm using Shadowplay. It seems to be notice how useful the gyro gun sight is there. Gunnery in DCS is a very different prospect to it. Okay, stalling as I try and stabilise from the line, he's flying so slowly, and now there's got to be AI. Climbing at an unbelievable rate because really low airspeed. Friendly. Let's try and hit him, shall we? Yeah, rudder coordination, as I said before, is massively important. It helps speed your roll rate slightly on the entering of a manoeuvre, and it also prevent you from stalling once you're in the manoeuvre. So here I am, I'm in a sustained right-hand turn. I've got plenty of rudder input in, so it won't do much there, to be honest. But I've also got a very smidge of left aileron pressure just to keep the roll from doing its own thing, keeping it steady. The Mustang is once your airspeed gets low, you need it. Okay. Just that looks like. Oh, good. Right, this is where we disengage and use nice constraint. Down fast now. When your airspeed's high, you've got to stand on it. Left rudder. When it's slow, you've got to stand on right. So. Most of the time I would advocate trimming out. Of course, sometimes things happen so quickly you can't proceed it, so just bear that in mind. If you're going quickly, you're going to need right rudder on, otherwise you're going to be out of trim. Slow you down. Plus, when you do go to make a manoeuvre, it's going to catch you up. So I'm going to disengage at this point. Climb out, going to reduce throttle a bit to 50. Don't see anybody following me. Check the temperatures. Okay, yep, we're all good. Speed's above 220, running nicely. In trim. Excellent. I think both the guys I shot down there were probably accurate. Half a chance on that. The Mustang going head on with AI football. Very useful, the tail warning radar. You might hear it sometimes. It's a little bell and this little indicator here will light up, an amber light. It's, bearing in mind it does come on anywhere below about 3,000 feet because it starts catching the ground. It will detect any object. So it's not just sort of telling you there's enemies behind it. It will pick up parachutes, friendlies, the ground, buildings, UFOs, so just be advised, not necessarily an enemy. It's pretty useful. Nice bit of speed, have it correct, the rudder there. Shooting, break off there. So my Use right rudder to accelerate and turn. I'm holding the rudder and now only just tweaking it to keep this turn going, and now coming downhill, rolling up a bit. Ah, big hits that way. Going on 60s. Go up. Something's coming in on us. Looks like a motor firing up on me. Right, slightly out of trim for that. Situation. I got the hit on him. So aware of that. Nice to drop the throttle. Right, despite what I thought was a good gunnery solution there, I managed to tickle it. Type of setup. Hear it. So what I mean about the tail warning radar now, I'm down it's pretty useless for telling me that we've actually set them up. Ah, come on. Start, there's that one thing. Okay, took one mate. Time to get the hell out of dodge on it. Low down and... Sorry my friend. Whew. Checking 6 regularly. Checking high. Airspeed 300, the equivalent temps are a bit high, but that's going to flog in the engine. RPM is okay. So we'll get over this crest here. And there's our base one, just one runway. 50 just to try a little bit. Green traces is measure Smiths, and I think that's probably green traces actually, but the Mustangs that I am on, there's more of them, so you just wait for the difference of the machine distance. About 345, 350 indicated. It's pretty quiet. Rudder movements might appear a little bit juddery sometimes. I think that's the pots and these side tech sticks pedals that I have. I'm interested in getting a pair of crosswinds, but finances and all that jazz would be nice. Okay, so phone brake, chop the throttle, start feeding in a little bit of positive elevator and some right rudder trim. The speed comes down below 200 and I'm going to start lowering the flaps. We've got 5 positions on the flaps. You can use a little bit of them in combat, I think I did then without saying anything. But I wouldn't hang on too long. When you do bleed speed and you do balloon slightly, it's a bit of an odd sensation. So there we are. So I'm going to pull the flap and come around, bleed up bit more speed, full flap down, gear down. I'm going to try and side slip in. X was high, frame rates knocked a bit, a lot of smoke out there. DCS doesn't seem to like too much smoke. Okay, crossing the threshold, I'm a little bit quick. Not exactly a three-pointer, but fairly greasy, so I like it. Mustang's fairly forgiving as long as you flare right and not too high. Okay, flaps up. I'm going to just cut across the grass here to the left. Bit naughty, but there we are. And just settle the brakes a little bit. Ooh, nearly collected the AAA gun. Okay, let's pop the canopy for some fresh air. Lovely. Okay, shut down the engine. Throttle is in idle position. I'm going to switch off the fuel and then switch off the mags. I'm done. Okay, now if I really want to get back in the fight, I can either escape and select a new aircraft. If I'm feeling particularly kind of a stickler for historical, I can go rearm and refuel. So that was communications complete. Just shut up.
Request rearming.
Copy. Do my airplane. I can also do a repair if I've picked up some battle damage, and that generally takes quite a while longer if you've got repair damage, and then sometimes if you have the option it's more worth going and fetching a new aeroplane from the spectator list, but whatever floats your boat. There you go, chaps. I hope that gives you an insight of what happens in the DCS P-51D Mustang. Start up, bit of a fight, bit of how to control the aeroplane, and good luck.
Rearming complete.
Hunting.